I've never done cold calls. I know that's not something that maybe is maybe Mike Williams would ring me around the neck for it. But
how does a professional musician go from the recording studio to billing $1.2 million in recruitment?
When I'm getting on that call, you have to be confident, and I know enough at this point that I can offer enough intelligent conversation to the call to make the person feel comfortable. Like, I do know their job. I know the players in the industry. I know things about their company already. Like, because I've done enough interrogating to know all this stuff already. You add some comfort to them just by familiar names and running in the same circles.
I'm Mark Whitby, and you're listening to the Resilient Recruiter Podcast. My guest today, Justin Levinson, is one of our coaching clients and the founder of Coming Up Creative. They're a boutique firm that helps agencies and brands across entertainment, gaming, and experiential marketing to attract top creative talent.
You hear like, oh, you don't even really need a website, or like, it's not the first thing you should think about. For us, it's very important because these are people that are creating creative ads for like the biggest, brands and in the world. And so if you're, branding doesn't take things seriously, how are they going to expect you to have a good eye and seeing things that are good within your candidates and
absolutely true. Before getting into recruitment, Justin spent years touring internationally as a guitarist and pianist. He later built a successful career as a singer-songwriter with his music featured on radio, airlines, and in film. That creative background gives him a unique perspective on storytelling, communication, and what makes great creative teams thrive.
I'm trying to not put out AI-driven content that's just like 3 recruiter tips to make things, you know what I mean? Like, we want to be part of the industry, not like we're just some outside recruiting agency that's trying to, you know what I mean? Like, and we are part of the industry. I will place an editor within a trailer house who makes a movie trailer, and that finishes and goes in the theaters, and then they put it on LinkedIn and share it. That trailer might not necessarily have happened, or at least in the way it did, if I hadn't put that person in that place on that day to do that project.
Since launching Coming Up Creative in 2022, Justin has grown from a solo recruiter to leading a 7-person global team. He's doubled revenue year on year and built a thriving business through some of the toughest times in the entertainment industry. In this episode, you'll hear how Justin blends creativity, technology, and resilience to build an exceptional recruitment firm. All right, Justin, so good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me today, Mark. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, by the way, I've always admired and loved your background, how you have your guitars on the wall. So if people are listening to this, but you've not seen the video, it's worth checking the video. Come to our YouTube channel, or we now do video on Spotify to get the full, the full experience. Because I think one of the things that's cool about you is that you don't come across as a stereotypical recruiter, and I'm sure we're going to delve into that as we go along here. But I think that is a good thing, by the way, and especially for your industry is kind of perfect. But so can you tell me the story? How did you get into recruiting anyway?
Yeah, so I didn't fall into it. So I'm going to say something a little different from many of the other guests. I feel like once I knew what it was, I sort of just fell into it. Or I didn't fall into it, but I just I ran to it. That's really what happened. So yeah, I guess basically when I finished, I went to college to study music. So that was sort of my main jam. And when I finished college, I decided I needed to form a team together to really, promote all my music. So I got a publicist. I got a licensing agent. I got a college agent. I got UK booking agency, club booking agency. I put a whole team together. So this was sort of my first experience building a team. And yeah, I toured for 10 years, and grinded. And then I met my wife. And then at around that time, I sort of thought, maybe we should go to LA, maybe we should move to Los Angeles. I still, I'm not too old. I'm not quite dead yet, as a Monty Python skit. So we went out there, and I tried to make it in music out there. I sort of also had this dream that I was going to start an artist management company. So that was sort of my first thing. It's called JXL Artist Management Company. And we did, bookings for bands and getting publicity for bands and all the things that I was used to doing for myself. And my first client was a recruitment agency owner. So, and I was working. He also was a musician, so I was, kind of helping his music career. And in short, I started seeing all the checks coming in, right, and saying like, wow, like I'm doing the socials here, and I'm not really making that much money, but these guys, I'm seeing 60, 80,000 checks, $1,000 checks coming in. I'm like, man, maybe this is pretty awesome. How do you do this? And so that was really the pivot from doing my own, publicity for artists to jumping into being a recruiter.
Wow, you're exactly right. I've never heard that story before. It is original and really cool. I don't know if I told you this. My son has just started his music degree at Glasgow University, so we took him over to get him settled in the Hall's residence like 3 weeks ago, which is a bit traumatic. I think your kids are a bit younger.
Yeah.
It is almost a grieving process, Justin, of like, because we're used to seeing him every day, and now we talk to him, like we FaceTime him and that kind of stuff. But it's strange, man. But
yeah, you must be so proud though, and like going into music is such a noble thing. It's such a great, it's the universal language, and my parents were so proud of me when I went to music school, and so I'm stoked that your kid is doing as well. Keep the tradition going.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's awesome. So once you when was this, by the way, that you got into the recruiting business?
I think it was like it's like 2018, something around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And, but then how did that, now I believe that you really took to it and you actually did well, but how did that lead to you working for yourself, launching your own practice?
Yeah. So I had worked for this other agency for a while and sort of was one of the top billers in the company. And yeah, I loved it. I had no plans on leaving. I purchased a house and had kids and a lot of financial responsibilities. Did not see myself ever being an agency owner. It was not the path I was going to choose. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it was because I hated the billing so much. I hate, for some reason about billing, that, it didn't even really register to me that I could have somebody do the billing for me. But especially in our specific industry, there's a lot of like permalance and like short-term bookings, and you're always chasing people for hours and day rates and hourly rates. And it was such a headache. I was like, I'm never going to own an agency. This sounds terrible. So unfortunately, for details I won't get into depth, but it came to a point in my other agency where I was really put in a position where there was really two options. And the option was I buy the agency, buy it out of one of the owners, or to just start my own thing. So the circumstance really put me in a unique position because I felt that where the agency was going, if I did not make a big choice, like I felt like I needed to go on my own because I think that my reputation might have been on the line, which is one of the things I was going through at the time. And I talked to my wife and I talked to my family, and all my friends for years have been like, Justin, you should just start your own business. Like if you're billing over $1 million, like, and giving it half back to the house, why do you keep working for this person? And I was like, well, I'm just comfortable. I like it. I like the people. It was, and so anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but it got to the point where I needed to make the choice, and I hired a designer. I hired, and I did one of those things where you leave in the middle of the night. I basically turned off. It's like I sent in my resignation during that night, and I literally like opened my business like within like 2 hours. Like I had a whole bunch of my friends over here making sure like LinkedIn was all set up correctly. And of course I had lawyers because I wanted to make sure I did this with integrity and a way that wouldn't get me into legal trouble. So yeah, that's in short, That's how I ended up starting it.
So it sounds like it was, you had no intention to, but then things came to a head and you kind of almost were forced into it one way or the other. You were going to either acquire that other business or go it on your own. What was the conversation in your house like, with your wife and it? Because I know what that's like, mortgage and kids and, responsibilities. And as you progress in life, the risks of starting over and doing something like this increase, right?
Yeah, well, I've always been a workhorse. I get that from my mom, and I think all my family believed in me, and they said, "I think you can do this." And I thought, well, I should just go ahead. And I had a different vision than the company that I was at too. Like, it had a very like predatory name to the company, and I thought, wow, I'd really like to have a name that's more inclusive and open, like Coming Up Creative, and something where the colors are sort of like rainbow-esque and inclusivity, and it should speak to, who I am as a person. And I don't know if anyone knows the Paul McCartney song called "Coming Up," but it's like coming up like a flower. And if you see the music video in it, he's playing himself as a drummer. And he looks really silly. He's playing himself as like an old Beatles version of himself, and various characters in this music video. But the high rise steps are in the exact colors of Coming Up Creative. So yeah, I'm a huge Beatles fan. Like, arguably, like, I'm just absolutely obsessed. And the Beach Boys as well. So I felt like, man, I want to make this myself and kind of have my vibe.
That I love that. By the way, I grew up on the Beatles and Monty Python, so we've got some shared cultural, influences there for sure. So yeah, absolutely, that's makes total sense. The brand and the style of the business and the ethos of the business should really be a reflection of the you as the owner, because it's your business, and B, the market as well that you're serving should dictate like the colors, the logo, the feel, and also the kind of style, the way you communicate. And we're going to get into that deep today, because I know that's one of your superpowers is like communication, including copywriting and that kind of stuff. So when was this that you launched officially, Justin?
So 2022 is my last year at my previous agency. In 2023 we started, and it was a big,
pretty recent.
I chose like basically like the year was over launching kind of thing. It was very choreographed, but like anybody, you're taking a big hit that first year because you're trying to just you're just trying to get in there. Not to go back to the design stuff, but I do think that is, and I know we're going to double click on it later, but for a lot of recruiting agencies, you hear like, oh, you don't even really need a website, or like, it's not the first thing you should think about. For us, being in this creative industry, especially, and I mean, I think it's with all recruiters as well, it's important to have good branding. But for us, it's very important because these are people that are creating creative ads for like the biggest, brands and, in the world. And so if your branding doesn't take them seriously, how are they going to expect you to have a good eye and seeing things that are, good within your candidates and
absolutely true. 100%. Like, you have quite a sophisticated audience. And so you almost have to be excellent in order to have respect from your clients and candidates, for sure. I get that. And by the way, I'm a big believer in investing in graphic design, for example, and getting the words right, because and it's something to be honest, I bottleneck so much in my business because I need to either be the author of the words or approve the words, and it slows things down a lot. But yeah, I think it does show when it's a more thoughtful approach, and I even subconsciously, probably outside of creative industries, maybe clients and candidates don't consciously really scrutinize, but it still has an impact, right? The brand and the visuals and the graphics and everything. So how did that first year go?
Well, the first year was a big hit, and when you leave an agency, I'm sure a lot of the viewers here have done it before, it's you're leaving a lot on the table, you're leaving, there was probably at least $100,000 in fees that I had to leave on the table to do that. And you can't just say, hey, I'm quitting, but can you still pay me for those other $100,000? It's like, yeah, right. Good luck. And in fact, you don't even want to tangle with that because you just want to escape clean and you don't want to have to deal with anything else. You just kind of want to be done with it, So the first year was rough. I mean, it wasn't rough. It wasn't. I mean, I think the first year we did like around 350K, and that was me, a solo biller.
That's a good first year, Justin. by the
Yeah,
way.
it wasn't bad because I didn't go bang on the door of my old clients and say, "Hey, work with me. I'm leaving. Come." I didn't do it the wrong way. I announced I was going on starting a new business on LinkedIn. If people wanted to reach out to me, they could, but I didn't. Another thing that was sort of tricky was when I had left, my previous employer had told a lot of people that I was fired, which I later found
Oh, that's not
through
nice.
yeah. So a lot of people were like, how is that even possible though? You like left in the middle of the night and you had a website and you had all this stuff. Like, how did you get, like, if you got fired, that was like the quickest turnaround to starting a business ever. But I don't think that, that didn't weigh on me, but it was sort of like something where I was like, oh man, am I going to have to like rebuild my reputation here? Because, I wasn't fired, but anyway, that's nor here nor there. But the first year, you're scared, and it took a minute to get that first job order in and make that first placement. But then when it did, everything kind of fell into a row, and things got better.
Absolutely. Well, look, 350K is a good performance, especially for your first year, and especially if you were not, porting all of your clients immediately to your new business. So, how long did it take to get that first deal in the door?
It was a couple of weeks, which was pretty weird.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of weird. And it was a client that I'd never worked with that was like, in the same space or in theatrical key art. So it was a company that makes like movie posters. And they needed an art director, and they, you never forget the first person that gives you a shot. I'm always like a little, nostalgic. I'm like, oh, that was so nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So look, fast forward to today, you've gone from being that solo recruiter, 350K your first year. What's the size and shape of the business now?
Yep. So it's gotten a lot bigger now. We have 3 virtual assistants. We have 2 that are in the Philippines, 1 that's in South Africa, and we have 3 contract recruiters that work for us in the States. 1 is in LA, 2 are in LA, and 1 in New Jersey. So it's pretty great. It kind of gives us we're on every time zone, and we work with clients in London, New York, and LA. So it all really gives us a way. We're working 24/7 in a way, which is kind of nice.
That's awesome, man. So what have been the keys do you feel like, looking back? I'd love to talk about a couple of aspects. One is the keys to your success, and then also any challenges or mistakes that you've had to navigate along the way as well. Like, if you're thinking about the most critical things that you feel like you've got right, which have contributed to the growth of your business, what would they be?
Well, I think it's, as you've said on the podcast, when the owners are kind of the bottleneck, sometimes it's sort of like delegating and letting go. That's been a big thing. Turns out somebody can do your billing,
Right.
So that was a lesson, and someone can do it better than I can.
Yeah.
So my very first hire was a virtual assistant in the Philippines. And originally I hired her. She's still with us right now, Leah. And I originally hired her to be a sourcer. I was thinking, she's going to be bringing in people inbound, and she ended up turning out to be great with our podcast and with with our billing and all those things that, I guess you sort of make that big circle, and all the things that you don't want to do, put it in the inside. So she's been so great at doing a lot of that administrative stuff. So that was, very, very helpful. And then the other 2 virtual assistants we have they do a lot of marketing. So they make a lot of marketing videos. They've got a better face than I have, so that really helps in the videos.
Well, let me just challenge this for a second. Well, let me challenge this. So first of all, I can't argue with success. Like, there's not one right way of doing any of this stuff, right? So that's the cool thing. And so when you say they are the face, like they're producing marketing videos, what does that mean? Is it content videos? Is it like candidate outreach? What is in those videos? Want to know one of the smartest ways to do business development? Get notified when people in your database change jobs. Think about it. Someone gets promoted or moves to a new company. That's multiple opportunities right there. Their new employer might need to build out the team. Their old company needs to backfill the role. They might have been interviewing elsewhere, which means potential leads. Recruiterflow is an AI-first ATS and CRM that monitors everyone in your database and alerts you when they change jobs. As one of their customers put it, it helps me be systematic about being in the right place at the right time. This kind of intelligence used to require manual checking on LinkedIn. Now it just happens automatically. If you want to see what else Recruiterflow can do, book a demo at recruitmentcoach.com/recruiterflow.
So we do a lot of we do like short videos of roles that we're working on. So we put a lot of those out there and kind of share them amongst each other. It does bring in candidates sometimes. It gets some interest. It definitely shows that we have jobs, which is kind of cool that we're not just some, and it's a cool thing, and it kind of just keeps marketing it, and it's fresh, and it's paid dividends for us over the long haul.
All right, cool. So, look, we'll circle back to content and marketing because I think that's something you're brilliant at. So, delegating was one of the keys, and starting with Leah in the Philippines. What are some of the other things? I just want to kind of get the list so I know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, getting technology that was really efficient, getting a really great ATS, finding something that works outbound, like Source Whale has been a very successful thing for us. I'm one of those guys, I'll try everything. We've done Instantly, we've done Clay, we've done with Lemlist, we've done, I used to use Meet Alfred back in the day with, try on LinkedIn. Like I'm always into something. So, it's just finding what works for you. But the technology piece, I think we've kind of found our secret sauce at this point. I think having everything very linked up with like the Calendly into the meta view, into the, the candidate call to getting the automatic pitch that gets circled back into our, it's just a very seamless process opposed to back in the day, the note in the pad and all that stuff. Now you can take a car ride and just casually have a conversation with somebody and get all those important details. And so, yeah, Source Whale has been a big one for us too, because, we talked about how copy is so important. And I really love the way you can customize the copy individually for each person. I mean, you can bulk like you can with anything in terms of a multi-channel campaign, just throw them into it. But it really gives you that extra eyeballs to say, oh, I want to say this about Mark. Oh, I'm noticing this about, or Mark and I both have this Monty Python thing in common. Like, can you generate some of that stuff with mass email campaigns through Instantly? Sure. But there's sort of like a touch that sounds human, or that can't be beat. And I think in the creative industry where I'm pitching to copywriters, you can't get away with like, hey, Steve, your experience at, so-and-so job look, what I mean? They've seen that before, you can't, BS a BSer. And I think in this industry, like the copy, you're not going to get it over them, and you're not going to poor design, in this particular niche, I think.
Interesting. So I want to spend a lot of time talking about copywriting and stuff today, but just briefly, what's the tech stack that you've settled on then that you feel is working well for you?
Yeah, so we use LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. We do a lot of Loom videos for the team. We have MetaView, Calendly. We use Source Whale, and I'm trying to think of what other ones we use. We communicate mostly within Google Chats, and so that's a really great place for us to have conversations. I would say that's the bulk of it, but we've had, it's been much bigger at times, and it's just sort of just seeing what achieves the best results for us and then cutting it down. So yeah, it's trial and error, but now it's working better than ever, which is good. And Source Whale, and Recruiterflow is something, and Grammarly, LastPass. LastPass was thanks to you, Mark. You really saved the day. I'm going to give huge props to you on two big things that you've helped me with recently. LastPass was just something I didn't do. It seems silly, but the amount of hours it saved me to have that thing organized, I will thank you forever for that idea. And also Calendly. Mark, you had shared with me about how, putting people into round robin links through Calendly. That way, other people in your team can take phone calls, and you don't have to, and it just fits nicely in there. That has been so amazing to,
Awesome.
yeah, because it's like most of the time I'm just like going to give them my Calendly link, take the call. And now it's like, you know what? I'm going to put this in one of my team's Calendly links. They're going to take the call and I'm going to trust them to do a good job. And that keeps me being able to focus on more higher leverage things. So those kind of
Fantastic.
tips, Mark, you're the man.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think it's funny because those are two pretty basic ones to me, but it's having a fresh perspective, right? Because you only know what you know, and someone else can look at that and go, "Oh, what about this?" And but I'm glad that was.
Yeah, I mean, you've offered way more high level things, especially through the program, which I'm very appreciative. But you don't realize sometimes that it's little tiny details like that can really, they make a difference. Not everyone knows about these things.
Yeah, fantastic. So, delegation, tech stack, and your approach to copywriting, which we're going to talk more about. Any other like really important kind of cornerstones to building this successful business?
Yeah, one thing I've been trying to really build is a really consistent tunnel where candidates are funneled in from the team overseas, and they're going to come into either they're going to take the call or they're going to be put into the diaries of the stateside recruiters. So it's a very circular kind of thing where candidates should be coming inbound all the time, and so that's been super helpful. Putting people into campaigns and then having them come through that way, it's super handy.
All right, beautiful. And then, well, let's start with that because that's something different that I think you've done a great job of figuring out. How does that actually work?
Yeah. So, for example, let's say a job order came in and we were looking through recruiter flow, because the first thing for us we want to do is we want to look at the people we already know, opposed to just going straight into LinkedIn. And if we keep a very organized database, and have market mapped those people, we should already have identified them before we're going into LinkedIn. So, we spend a lot of time market mapping. We're tagging people and organizing them, even if we haven't had a touch point speaking with them yet. We have identified them and they're organized. So, for example, even if it's a very junior level role, let's say it's an assistant editor. If you were to go into our database, you would find out all the assistant editors that are in LA, New York, London. We would know based on filtering if they cut in Premiere or Avid, if they are junior, mid, or senior level. We would pretty much be able to filter out the group of whatever 20, 40 people. It's going to be one of these people, 100%. So what we can do, I guess this isn't bringing in new candidates outbound, but I'll just kind of tell you a process. So we would take all that information, and then somebody who's working for us overseas can put that into a campaign, right? So it's telling us, it's reaching out to those people in a very personable, nice way, in a multi-channel way, and it's bringing in all those people inbound. Once those people have responded, if they're interested, at that quickly, they're given a Calendly link attached to MetaView, and that call is going to go to the person in the States who's going to take that call. Then they're going to bring that information back to the whole team to share. So that would be how that would work. In terms of if it was just a new role, and it doesn't happen too often, but if it was a brand new role and we didn't have those people, our folks overseas would be really sourcing all those people, coming up with lists. Many of them might come to me for approval first to be like, okay, these look decent, but maybe these aren't. And then choosing which people to add into the appropriate campaigns. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So there's a couple of things you mentioned there that I wanted to clarify. First of all, you've done a brilliant job of the whole market mapping and making sure that your database is your first place to go. That is a massive advantage, which is totally logical, and yet many recruiters haven't done that. So I mean, probably because it's a massive amount of work. There is an investment in building that database and maintaining it. Secondly, is in terms of you said put them into outreach sequences. Is that through recruiter flows, through source whale? What's the mechanism?
It's through source whale. So we'll do, for candidate campaigns, it's usually a short one. It's like 3 or 4 touch points. Not trying to beat them over the head. And it's usually like, email, LinkedIn, something fairly to the point. And yeah, that usually brings somebody in inbound. I mean, there's opportunities if there's somebody you really like, you can see if they've looked at the campaign a couple of times, but maybe they haven't responded. You could potentially like shoot them a text, or you could even program a text within the sequence. But yeah, I've never done cold calls. I know that's not something that maybe is maybe Mike Williams would ring me around the neck for it, but
you wouldn't be on his team. Let's put it that way. But it's so funny because that's just it. There isn't one right way of doing this, right? And that's what I love about this podcast is just hearing different approaches to the business, and I find endlessly fascinating. So for your outbound is completely digital. It's either an email, LinkedIn, maybe a text message, and then they raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I'm interested to learn more." Then who in your team is responding to that and like sending them the link and getting them booked in?
Well, it's whoever was on the campaign, like if the campaign was, yeah, that person would be flagged that they responded, and then we could just send through a template, like, oh, cool, send your resume, portfolio link, and book a time here, and then you have the Calendly link, so they can just click into it, and it's seamless. I mean, there is one. The response has to be human. There isn't like a source whale response. It's like at least not that I know of, that's the automated, like, oh, thank you for being interested. Here's the Calendly. Maybe there is. Yeah. I got to find out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I'm sure there is a way of automating that. But again, it's like, is it worth it? And should you? Just because you can automate something doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Okay. So then they book into and is that the round robin? So it goes to one of your team members to take the call, qualify the candidate, present the opportunity, get them interested. Amazing. So how does this relate to the funnel thing that you mentioned a minute ago? Is that more or less it, or is there any other aspects to the candidate funnel?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, where it's kind of like reaching out to having them come inbound that way. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I wish there was one extra magic trick to it, but yeah.
No, that's cool. All right, awesome. And then how does it work on the client side as far as your outreach there is concerned?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different campaigns that are set up for, if a campaign that's if they're hiring, that's sort of a campaign that goes to that. If we see that on LinkedIn, there's another campaign that's if, a job change campaign. There's another campaign that goes if we've seen the person leave from that job, there's a refill campaign. So, and we've used those in the past with Clay. And so we've adopted those same sort of campaigns and used them in Source Whale. We also do a campaign for our podcast. So a lot of industry leaders, we have a nice campaign that kind of shows like, hey, we've seen what you're doing. We'd be interested in having a conversation with you. And here are all the people that we've interviewed before. And it's pretty to the point. So it's like those sort of campaigns we run a lot. And we do get a pretty decent amount of decent response. A lot of it is just referrals to and sort of NPC marketing. That's a big thing. If we find somebody that comes in with a book of $3 to $5 million of business and they're looking to take a meeting, we can just say like, hey, we got this guy.
Yeah.
Are you interested in having $5 million of business? Because I know the guy, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. So let me just break this down a little bit. So you have let's call them signals. So either there's an open job or someone has recently changed jobs, which means you could contact that person they might be hiring or their company might be hiring, but also there's then what did you call it? Where you replace them at their previous
Replacement
firm?
campaign.
Replacement campaign. Okay. I would call it backfill,
Yes.
same idea. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Replacement campaign. Then you've got your NPC campaigns, and then you've got your podcast campaigns. So if it's an industry leader, someone you'd really like you think it would be a great person to A, have as a client, but B, could bring value to your audience, then that's another campaign. So there's 5 different campaigns there, plus of course referrals and repeat business kind of on top of that. It's so interesting that you have that all running with no cold calling, Justin, because for most recruiting businesses, the cold calling is the staple, and the outreach, the automation is the bolt on, and you've kind of you're getting enough deal flow from the campaigns, which is superb.
The problem is my calendar is already filled up with qualified people with just that process. So there's almost not room to book to cold call in my day, because it's working it's working efficiently as it is in a way.
I wouldn't say that's a problem. What I would say though is maybe you're leaving money on the table. You could hire like an SDR or BDR type person who follows up on those campaigns and then just squeezes the juice to make sure that there's no one who you might have booked a call with, but they, for whatever reason, the campaign didn't do the job. But listen, so I suspect, because now here's the thing, a lot of recruiters are attempting to do something along the lines of what you described and failing. And there could be a number of reasons for that, but I suspect that one of the reasons is the copy is too generic, and it sounds like everyone else, and it doesn't resonate. It's not personalized enough, and it doesn't have any personality, right? It just, and so it does not, it just gets deleted. So, and again, I'm just guessing, maybe there's always industry, differences, and some industries maybe are more saturated. And so it's harder to get through the noise. But I would if I had to take a guess, I'd say, Justin, that the content of your emails and messages is just better. Is that fair? Or what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's better, but I think I know my audience in this particular creative space, and my copy will not feel like will not feel like a cold email. Like, you would never get a campaign from me and it would be like, wow, I see all those like keywords that they've, filled in there, and it's clearly, I'm coming, like, no, it just never would happen. And we can do that in strategic ways. Like, for example, even the clients that already know me, right, that we already work with, I don't spend every Monday being like, hey, are you hiring? Hey, Steve. Hey, Mark, are you hiring? Like, I don't go through like we can put those in a campaign, and we can put all the clients in on Monday and say, hey, man, or, hey, first name, doing our morning meeting, just checking in on hiring needs. Like a one sentence. And if that goes out to every single client, they're not going to be like, wow, that sounds like it's an automated thing. Like, they know it's my shorthand, and that could be, my assistant could be putting that in there. And so I take that, even when I do a long campaign, it might be filled with more, like, I'm still trying to squeeze more juice in every single way. Like, maybe even the breakup one, like, hey man, like, totally, Steve, it's not for you, but do you happen to know anybody? We pay referral fees upon placement. You might get that there, or, it will keep coming in there, but even with candidates, you can squeeze more juice out, being like, hey man, I see you're not interested in this, but like, curious if you guys are hiring right now at blah, 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 If you say them in like 2 sentence things, I'm not saying make it bad on purpose, but if it's just like, get to the point and it doesn't look like it's coming from a campaign, and they're seeing your face on LinkedIn, and they're putting 2 and 2 together of like, oh, this is what this guy must sound like, and this is the copy. And I think it's sort of like, I think that's how it's working for us, at least. The anti-campaign kind of.
That is brilliant. So if I am understanding correctly, number one is that the messages all sound like Justin Levinson. So so it's got more personality, or it's got your personality at least. And if they know you already, they're going to be like, oh yeah, they're not even going to question. They're going to feel like even if your assistant actually sent the message, they're going to assume it's genuinely from you.
Yep. And most campaigns are going to come from me. However, if I've beat those contacts to a dead horse and they're not answering to me, sometimes if you put somebody else on my team, just a different face is like, oh, they'll respond to her. You don't know their experience. Like maybe they've had a bad experience with a guy recruiter before, and now there's like a female that reaches out. I'm just assuming things, but I always wonder, because sometimes I'd use my wife's computer, she has a LinkedIn page, and I'd reach out to people on her page and they'd respond. I'd be like, why aren't they responding to me? Like, I'm a nice guy. They respond to her. And then I make my wife take the call, and then she puts them back to me. I'm like, oh, now I've got the call here. So I'm strategically, if you see Marley Morosi on LinkedIn, she does not exist. I mean, she does exist, but she's not really a recruiter.
That's hilarious. It's okay. So here's an advanced tip for our listeners, is exactly what Justin's saying, which is if you have multiple team members and you run, let's say, an outreach campaign on LinkedIn to connect with people, and the ones who don't accept your connection request, take that same list and send it out through another team member, and they're going to get connections that you didn't for whatever reason. And it could be, I try not to take it personally, but who knows? It could be a variety of reasons. But so yeah, great point. So coming back to the copy though, so number one, it's your style, which I'm gathering is fairly informal. Was that a fair description? So it's less formal. It's more laid back. It's
not aggressive either. Like if I'm like meeting a new person, it's just like, hey, Mark, great to be connected. And I'm not going to put another thing into that LinkedIn message for like weeks, maybe. You know what I mean? I'm going to let it burn. I'm not going to go straight in for an ask or like, what can you do for, you know what I mean? It's very like, I keep it very low key. I always try to like, lead with value and see if I can help people first before I come in with like, hey, can you pay me to do this? So I think I try to play it cool. I do my best.
Play it cool. That's a good description. So what's good about that low key, play it cool kind of approach is it's the opposite of needy, right? And I think the problem with the reason I like salespeople, I feel like, I'm a salesperson, and I feel like I have a huge amount of empathy for other salespeople, which ultimately recruiting we're in the influence business. But the reason people have a negative association with salespeople is because they think of it being pushy or aggressive, or like there's a sort of almost a desperation, or like a someone who's putting their agenda and their own needs and their desire to earn commission ahead of, other factors. And so what's good about your approach, it's like the diametric opposite of that, which is like low key, super non-needy. But ironically, that posture elevates your status, right? Like a lot of salespeople are low status ultimately because of the way they come across. Whereas if you're not, you don't need, maybe you do need their business, right? But you can't come across that way. If you come across like, playing it cool, you don't need their business. It actually, you maintains you as a high status person, because ultimately a CEO of a big company, let's say, or someone who has high status, they're not going to come across as needy.
Totally. And I also don't want to, I believe that the phone still is very important too. So just because I don't cold call, a lot of the sales approach that I use, it comes from information that I get on phone calls too, because that's the way you can really speak directly to a client and their pain points. I think overall, like when I my last year of recruiting, I had a LinkedIn page. It was a LinkedIn business page, and I had a Google Drive, and I billed $1.2 million. I didn't have any of these tools, and I still think the phone is still the move, and where the money is made is still on the phone. So we can do all this other stuff out here, but it's like, can you read the room, and can you get on a call with somebody and get all the details that you need from that person to elevate you to the next thing, because there's so much details in a call, and you've got to like strategically, there's a cadence to it. You've got to strategically, get very important details and have a strategic way of using them to your own advantage and to the advantage of the person that you're servicing and the people, the candidate and the client, So I kind of went on a rant there, but there is something to be squeezed out of every single phone call that can be used. You can find the pain points of why is the candidate talking to you in the first place? Like, what is going on where they're working? How did they get hired? Does everyone ask, like, I want to know how every candidate, did they get hired through a recruiter? Was it internal? Oh, by the way, who's the person's name that you got hired by? Oh, it was Wendy. She's, HR director. Oh, cool. Awesome. Is she looking to hire anybody now? Like, you just you get to that, you have to keep things focused on the candidate and it's about them. But once you've got that trust and you've built that with them, you can start asking a lot of things. You can start finding out. I mean, I just had a call with somebody the other day. I picked up I think I picked up 4 jobs. I found out like all the dirt within the entire company, Obviously, I'm not going to go to the CEO of the company and be like, hey, I just talked to so-and-so. You've got all these problems here. But you can say like, hey, I just talked to somebody, had somebody on your team reach out to me. And, they're saying that, there's everyone's a little overworked because there are a couple of key hires that need to be made on this particular team. Like, curious if we can help. We've got some great people in the pipeline. You know what I mean? Like, you can turn something into something, and it's just being able to find those little pieces in every phone call. And that is the high level sales. I think a lot of recruiters are just like, oh, you're not qualified for the role, pass. Or, oh, you look like a fit, I'm going to submit. But there's just like all of the money is in this business is made on pretty much everything that's not everything that's not that. But the big money is it's the bigger stuff. Higher level sales.
Okay. I'm so glad that you brought this up, Justin, because I wouldn't have thought to ask you about it. And so you're almost describing, like as you were talking, I was picturing an iceberg, right? And there's the obvious stuff at the surface that's above the surface of the water. And I think you're right. A lot of recruiters are superficial in their approach, and they only really address the most obvious thing. Is the candidate a match? Or what are the details of the job order, whatever the conversation is. And what you're saying is the secret to you billing 1.2 million with very few technical resources was those conversations were much more in depth and 3-dimensional, and you were really thinking about all the angles there. Would you please share, like, I guess 2 things. One, and you've already touched on, but I'd love to learn more about your mindset when you're going to this call. Like, what is your objective, or what's your way of thinking about this call? And then number 2, maybe more around like the technique, because I think when recruiters do try and dig, again, they fail because the candidate feels like you're just pumping them for information, right? And it feels aggressive or kind of transactional. And obviously you've avoided that. So what's your mindset on those calls? What's your objective and what's your approach?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm getting on that call, you have to be confident. And I know enough at this point that I can offer enough intelligent conversation to the call to make the person feel comfortable. Like, I do know their job. I know the players in the industry. I know things about their company already, like, because I've done enough interrogating to know all this stuff already. So I think you add some comfort to them just by familiar names and running in the same circles. And yeah, you have to focus on the candidate first. It's about them and their opportunity. But once you have fulfilled that, where you're like, yes, I could pitch you here, here, or here. I wouldn't pitch you here because I think this isn't going to be a place, culture fit here, problem, or, giving them some balance into, giving some balance as a real like consultant. They see you as somebody that wants to help them, and you do want to help them. I'm not just trying to make a buck. I want them to go to the right place. And yeah, I mean, and once you've got that detail, you can kind of dig in a little bit more on the things that maybe can help you, and it can help them too, because it's like, what if they're going to stay in that company, and things are really rough because there's another account executive and another account director above, or, working with them, and their workload's not going to get any better. If I can staff their company, it might position them to maybe want to stay at their company. I can help. You can help everybody in a way,
Interesting. I mean, so what I'm hearing is, number one, you can very quickly establish credibility because you do know what you're talking about, and that's clear. So then you're someone who they feel like, oh, this is a worthwhile conversation, or this is a worthwhile relationship for me to invest into. So that's important. But secondly, is you are making it about them and trying to help them first, and so you're gaining trust because you're being consultative, you're giving suggestions, you're adding value, and you make that the primary focus. And then once you've established trust and credibility, that opens up all kinds of other opportunities that other recruiters may overlook.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you could say like, "Hey, where do you want to go? Who are you already talking to? Who are you already in meetings with? Other people that are hiring. Oh, you're talking to this company, this company, this company. Oh, these are the places you want to go. Maybe I can NPC you to these companies. You can tell them like, hey, if you see something on the job boards and you don't want to go through the LinkedIn wormhole, maybe I know a decision maker there and I can help you. Like we can really work together on the larger. It's going to be cooler if you have somebody representing you opposed to you going on the job market yourself, especially if you're like a really senior level person. It's kind of weird sometimes to apply to work. How about you go through me and I'll help you. And then the other important thing that is like, what are we doing with all that data that we're catching in these conversations? Like, are we going to remember it for the next time we get on the phone call? Like maybe, Mark, I can remember that your kid is in music school, and maybe we can have something common to begin our next conversation with. Maybe that entire transcript can be used for value-driven content that we could put across our socials. We're not going to name the person's name, but hey, here's a problem that's happening in the PR space, or here's a problem that's happening in theatrical marketing, or this is what we're hearing from our people. I mean, you're collecting hundreds of conversations a week. You're basically, it's creating all the content for you. So how can we take every single piece of information and use it in some way that's going to benefit us and the people around us?
I love that. That's absolutely true. So you mentioned MetaView earlier. So you're transcribing, you're recording and transcribing all those calls, which can then enrich your database with so you don't have, because you're not going to remember everything, right? And that makes it easier for subsequent conversations, but also the content side. So let's talk about that. Because you have the whole podcast thing going on as well, which, as you know, obviously I'm a big believer in. How has that added to the business, or what does that do for you?
Yeah, we've converted many guests to clients, so that's been very successful. But it also just it helps me become an expert in my industry because I'm talking to people that are leaders that are telling me insights and things that are helping me grow as well. And it's creating content for our socials, which sort of helps us create that omnipresence where we're sort of everywhere. It gets like FaceTime with very senior level people, which you would never get in any other way. It offers value first. So I'm not coming in for begging for work. And some of our guests I've never even asked for work after. It's not always about that. It might just be an interesting guest that can offer value. But we'd be lying if we weren't saying that there is some sort of lead generation. We are trying to bring people inbound. We're trying to get to know them. We're trying to learn more. But it's more of a big picture thing. And converting them isn't just like, oh, you're done the show. Like, are you hiring? It's still further nurturing after that conversation, and keeping an eye on if they're hiring and talking to people within their company. And still, it's still just a warm lead. It's not going for the big thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. How long have you been doing it?
We've done over 50 episodes now.
Good for you.
So yeah,
That
and
is
I don't
brilliant.
see us stopping it. It's been a really good thing for us, and it keeps me accountable, and it's one of the things I enjoy doing.
Fantastic. Yeah, me too, definitely. And so you've mentioned, so the podcast obviously has multiple benefits, including giving you content so you're omnipresent. What other types of like, and that, but then you mentioned also the conversations you're having, getting content ideas from that. So what other kinds of content are you guys putting out there?
Yeah, I'm trying to not put out AI driven content that's just like 3 recruiter tips to make things, you know what I mean? Like, I think I'm trying to come up with something that is a piece of, I mean, the ideal client avatar is who we're trying to speak to. And I think the way we're trying to position ourselves is that we're not that we are also in the same industry they are, that we are sharing of industry events. Like here is like, here's the Golden Trailer Awards, or here are the Effie Awards, or here are the, make sure you get your tickets. Maybe we'll be seeing you at the Clio. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like sharing wins if clients are winning big. It didn't have to be clients, it just be people in our industry. If we like a piece that they did, or maybe there was some information, was a big merger in our industry, just we want to be part of the industry, not like we're just some outside recruiting agency that's trying to, you know what I mean? Like, and we are part of the industry. I will place an editor within a trailer house who makes a movie trailer, and that finishes and goes in the theaters, and then they put it on LinkedIn and share it. That trailer might not necessarily have happened, or at least in the way it did, if I hadn't put that person in that place on that day to do that project. So
That's cool.
I am not physically doing it. I mean, we are doing trailer music and TV spot music as well as sort of a second function of our business. But we're part of it, and I want to feel like that to the community.
That is so awesome, Justin, because I think you're right. When people create content on LinkedIn, it some of it is a bit too formulaic and like interview tips and that kind of thing. And you're again you want to be part of the industry, like an insider rather than, a vendor to the industry. So celebrating something I picked up on that you mentioned that I think actually we're not doing enough is celebrating people's achievements in your industry. And if they're a client, obviously, but even maybe if they're not a client, that's content, shouting out industry events, that kind of stuff.
The newsletter has been very helpful too. The newsletter.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, we now are using that, and that was another suggestion, Mark. I know you guys do a newsletter as well. Is having it be a second place to take information. Like we just had this great conversation with this industry leader. Here are some tips on how creative agencies can scale in 2025, and just keep on pushing that same content from the people, and we get to tag them. We get to tag the companies they've been with. People are going to come in and be like, oh, who the heck are these guys tagging our company? Oh, it's Justin Levinson. Who the heck is this guy? You know what I mean? You're kind of like, strategic tagging can really sort of bring people to you where they're like, wow, like I don't know why this guy tagged me, but I'll have to click on this.
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally. That's a great suggestion. So you've leveled up your billings year on year since you started. You've gone from solo to having a 7-person team. What's been like the biggest roadblock or challenge, in that journey, Justin? Or you just like the Midas touch and everything turns to gold?
I mean, I think diversity is something that, in terms of diversification of the types of companies we work with, so experiential marketing, influencer marketing, immersive entertainment, we're broadening things. For a long time, we were just in one specific space in theatrical marketing. And as we know, there's the writer strikes, there were the actor strikes. Like movies are in decline. So we have to be more agile. And I think, if there's anything that I had not strategized around enough was not. I wish I had diversified sooner. So now it's like 2022 was really good. It's been going down. And now that we're starting to diversify, we're starting to get back to that million mark where we were in 22. But it's been a roller coaster, It's like, and you can't predict those industry changes. Like no one could tell you that like, oh, Hollywood is going to completely go to heck in a handbasket from all these terrible pandemic, writer strike, actor strike. These are things that there was no content being made during those times. So to be a big biller, it's like like nobody could have done that during that time. So you have to be, position yourself strategically. I'm trying to do more gaming clients. Gaming was big during the pandemic when theatrical went down. Now we're looking at immersive. Now we're looking at influencer marketing. That seems to be where the world is going, and I'm trying to stay relevant there.
So really interesting. So how have you chosen which other niches to focus on where it's a strategic pivot? It's not a complete, change from what you're already doing, but there's enough crossover that it's not a huge stretch for you.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be just something that's creative, a creative agency. That could be a creative PR agency. That could be a creative experiential agency, a creative influencer, could be TV streaming, theatrical marketing, but it has to be fairly creative. A lot of those big, gigantic recruiting firms that are in creative spaces, their secret sauce is typically finding creative roles within non-creative industries. So yeah, there's probably a designer at a law firm, or there's probably like a creative director at a, whatever. We're sort of, I want, niches in the riches. Has to be creative, but it can't just be in the movie business. It's got to be larger picture.
Okay, got it. So the creative industry is the common thread that connects all the different areas that you're breaking into. Fantastic. Justin, we could keep talking for another hour because this is I'm having fun, but that was super valuable. Thank you for, this is going to be a popular episode because you've just shared really specific and tactical stuff, which recruiters love that kind of podcast. It's been really, really valuable. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I love this podcast, and I've learned so many things too. And I'm an open book and always learning more things. I hope this can offer some value to folks. But if something I'm doing that isn't perfect, or you think I could tune up my game, like all recruiters, reach out to me. I'd love to learn from you as well.
Justin, thanks a lot. Have an awesome weekend.
Awesome, Mark. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to The Resilient Recruiter. I know how busy recruiters are, so I'm honored that you're investing this time with me each week. I don't take your attention for granted. That's why I'm going all out to deliver value for you here, real insights you can apply to improve your business. And if you really want to help me to reach a wider audience and impact more people, please consider leaving the show a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you leave me a review, please reach out and let me know so I can thank you personally. Please hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.